Hi everyone. The following is a conversation that I had with Jose Luis García del Castillo right after we finished a freediving course in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. I would invite you to hear our thought process after a week of daily freediving, learning the techniques, how you have to breathe and how you can compensate your ears and how we got into all of this.
And how it relates to mindfulness.
We also share some insights about what things we thought were in a different way than they were, and the things that we learned that I think are going to be with us for the rest of our lives, to be able to do this, to practice this sport in a safer way.
If we don't die trying, yeah.
Diving without the oxygen bottles.
It's just holding your breath, going down, and relaxing under the water.
We didn't know anything about a lot of things, of the basics of how you do this sport or this activity. And we took 1 week just to focus on this. We've been diving every single day for 7 days.
Which we have been told was a rushed way of doing this, right? I thought taking a week off to do anything was pretty chill.
I brought my podcast mics here. It was meant to be a disconnection week. And, I didn't touch them. So we're rushing.
We're reconnecting again. Welcome. Hello, world.
And this is the last hour we'll be together. So Jose Luis was coming from the US and I was coming from Malaga, from the peninsula. And I just had this idea that what would be the best moment to gather first impression thoughts than right after finishing the week and right after leaving. So let's dive in.
That was a good one.
All right. So what I would love to capture here are things that we have learned that we didn't know before or that we thought were different before.
First of all, I have to say that freediving as an activity is way, way harder than I expected. Way harder. And now I can see, I came here with the mindset of learning some kind of recreational activity, but I've definitely learned that this is a legit sport. Like, you have to train, there's technique, you improve the more you practice. There's like little secrets to boost your performance depth-wise, time-wise. It's not a recreation. I mean, it is a recreational activity, as running can be recreational for anyone who enjoys the mindfulness of just going out for a run and being with yourself.
Yeah, and I think I would also add one thing is that it is safer sport than I thought, if done right. I was a bit scared of diving and going deeper than 4 meters or something like that. And if you do it in a controlled way, so there's like this buddy system or like this learner and instructor kind of way in which that somebody is allocating his attention to you. So they're focused on you and whether something happens to you and if they have to go get you, right? Or again, they have to help you out or take you out of the water or do something like that. That's one thing that's really important. And I think you knew that from scuba diving before, like the buddy system.
That's what I was going to say. It's interesting that you're saying that it's safer than you expected. I was coming from the mindset of scuba diving, which is something I've been doing for the past few years. And I came with the mindset of like, oh, free diving, you just jump on the water and like just go down a few meters. What can go wrong, right? However, I was amazed at the amount of technique, safety protocols, and things that you need to learn in order to do it in a safe, sustainable way.
It's a highly technical sport. And what really impresses me is that we started with technique from the very beginning. And I would be amazed to see how much better we could do other sports, maybe running or cycling or other things, if we were to learn in this way, like learning some theory before or some challenges or some dangers of the sport that, I don't know, maybe you're injuring your legs because of the way you're cycling or you're running. And, it would be interesting. We do running, as you said, in a more like free way because there are no dangers of like just fainting and like drowning in water, right? Like you can faint running, but you're fainting and you can keep breathing or something. But if you faint inside of the water, you can die because you're going to swallow, right? Like a lot of water.
I think you have a really interesting point. Freediving, you go to a course and you learn all this technique, whatever, but it could be thought as something as natural as just jumping in the water and going down. Like what can be more natural than that? Running can be as natural as that. However, I don't think anybody takes like a running level 1 course. and learns technique, learns to orient your foot, learns how to breathe as you're running. It's like you were saying this weekend, like, oh, yeah, I used to be in Malaga and just like, we just jump in the water and go down and try to catch some crabs. It's just like, I grew up like that,
A bit of background for everyone who's listening. We did level 1 of a series of courses, right? There's level 1, level 2, level 3, and then there is also the instructor course that you don't need to take all these courses before you take the instructor course, right? But there is like this kind of dynamic of like getting started and then level 2, level 3. So it would be really interesting to see maybe that applied to running. Like if you had some certification or some sort of leveling where you say, okay, I am a runner level 1 or runner level 2. And I'd be curious to see what things we think we know that we don't know, or what things we just don't know about how they are.
And how you have been beating your body without noticing, and now you're risking injuries.
One example of something that I did think I knew, but I didn't. In Spain here, we call this thing like going into the water, and when you feel pain in your ears, we say, quote unquote, decompressing or something like that. Apparently that word doesn't exist in this realm or something. The actual word is equalizing, so equalization. And I'm not going to get into the details. We learn a lot, but there's like this piece inside of your head that is called the Eustachian tube that connects your mouth or like some cavities in your head to the middle ear, and that connects to the external ear, right? So when you dive, the middle ear's pressure gets lower and lower and lower, gets compressed, and is different from the external ear, right? So you need to do some exercise to equalize, and to equalize the pressure of the middle ear with that of the external ear, which is whatever is outside in the air or in the water. And this happens as you go down, right? So what I was saying is, I thought before that I had to do this when I was down 2 or 3 meters when my ears were in pain. And apparently you need to do this right on the surface when you're going to start diving. And then you do some movement to go down. And then 1 meter below the surface, you have to equalize again. You keep going down. 1 meter below, you have to equalize again. And so on and so forth, right? Every meter you go down, you have to equalize and make sure that the pressure is right on your ear. Otherwise, you'll be, long term, you'll be harming your, I don't know how you say tympano. So the membrane, if you go down below the surface more than 20 meters without doing any equalization, you will break the membrane.
Eardrums? Eardrums?
I think it's eardrums. There's a translation problem here, whatever. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. I thought I knew that. And now we've learned, and with this technique, you can go down the water without harming your ears. Some people do even up to 200 meters, right? We have just tried to go down like 5, 10, 15, 20 or something like that.
Which is also really interesting coming from a scuba diving perspective, where you have to learn how to equalize, but since you're going down very slowly at a steady pace, at your own pace, and you can stop anytime and you can breathe, whatever, equalizing plays a much lesser role in scuba diving because it's just easier and you can take all your time. Whereas here, you want to minimize the time you spend going down. So you have to do it really fast. And the pressure changes dramatically. It's kind of extreme.
Yeah, and I think the difference is like in scuba, if you go down 20 meters, you're going to do it slowly and just once. But in freediving, you will go down 20 meters or 10 meters and then you go up. You go down and then you go up. You go down and then you go up. And then, you're putting pressure in your ear and like relieving the pressure and then putting pressure and,
No, tell us about the tool we've learned. It's very useful to train your eardrums. This is not sponsored content, okay? We're just really amazed at it.
There is this patent pending product that is called Otovent, right? Otovent. It's a little device, a really little device that you put in your nostrils. And it comes with 5 or 10 balloons that are, how do you say it? Especially adapted.
They're calibrated.
Yeah, they're calibrated to not break your middle ear, right? Your eardrum or something. And how it works is you put it on your nostril, and then there are like 5 or 6 different exercises you can do, but the most basic is you put it on your nostril. Then you have to block your other nostril and then try to blow with your nostril to inflate the balloon until it has the shape or the size of a grenade or an orange.
It's really interesting. It's basically this specialized balloon that you have to inflate with your nose. But it's calibrated so that when you fully inflate it, it equalizes perfectly your nostrils so that your eardrums pop out.
Yeah.
And by doing this sequentially, you're basically popping in and out, on in and out your eardrums, and you make them more flexible, right?
So you're making more flexible the eustachian tube and the ear drum, what you said, when it gets pressured, it's like if the fabric on the drum got to the inside, right? It's like it's something is pushing. So you need to make sure that when you equalize it, it goes back to the original form, which is straight. And this was originally invented for kids who suffered from middle ear pressure pain when they were flying, right? I think it was mainly when they were going down, so they were landing. And it's recommended for those cases in the moments where the plane is going down, during the plane, the moment the plane is going down, and after the plane. So if you have a lot of pain, you can do it like for a few days or weeks even after you've flown. And I think it also prevents something called middle ear glue something. It's like, I don't know. That's something I would have to look at. But there is like also some other things that this is used for. And it was discovered that it also served freedivers who wanted to have a way to learn how to equalize better and make their eustachian tube more flexible. And that way it actually works. So you're practicing the same situation that your ear would be in outside of the water. So you're meant to be doing this for at least 3 weeks every day and do like a series of exercises for sometimes. And for this, before I forget, I also want to give some shout out. This is again not sponsored, just because we really love the course. So Paco González Castro was our main instructor.
Non-sponsored content, but I would like to thank Paco and his whole team from Apnea Academy West Europe. They were great. They gave us a really nice time, and I highly recommend anyone interested in doing this to just reach out to them. It's very good training experience and very good human quality.
And we also had Biagio Alessandro Picardi and Fernando. I don't remember.
I don't think he told us his last names.
And, we've had 3 different instructors.
In Georgia.
Yeah, I've really appreciated. We were in touch even before getting to the island remotely, so on Skype. And, we've learned a lot of the good practices that you need to learn from the very beginning, because otherwise you get like bad habits and you don't want to do that. Like there's silly things like not having your tube on your mouth when you're out of the water, or like don't free dive and go down with the tube on your mouth. Like many, many, many things that I think we'll be thankful to know for the rest of our lives. We've had different exercises. So we've been out on the boat on part of Tenerife called Radazul in Tabaibas, El Puerto. And we've done 2 or 3 different types of exercises, right? One where you put a rod with a weight on the bottom, and there is like a technique, a way in which you try to close your eyes and go down on the rope as if you were scaling up, but going actually down in the water. And this is just to learn how to go down and equalize. And then the other exercise is to do a way, like, I don't know how to explain, but just try to go down, pushing with your fins without any rod or anything, and trying to go down, also equalizing with, blocking your nostrils. Just in 7 days, diving in the mornings and in the afternoons, we've seen turtles, we've seen cuttlefish, we've seen octopus,
turtles, manta rays, tons of different fish.
One day we actually got to see like a bunch of whales.
Like a lot of whales.
That was from the boat.
We have footage of the whales.
You can actually not jump with the whales. It's illegal. You get like a really big fine. But there were like dozens of them. We saw probably more than 30 or 40. And we have a lot of footage.
Yeah.
What else? Crabs. So many crabs. And many different types of fish that, are coming around the area.
Oh, and slugs. A lot of slugs. So, no. Tell us about the experience of being deep under.
Well, I had done this before, up to like maybe 3 or 4 meters. I don't know if maybe a bit more, but I didn't really know any of these techniques. And it really feels good, right? Like as Paco said, I think the most important is that you learn how to be comfortable and enjoy the experience of going down, not focus on going really, really deep down. And it feels really calm. There is like this breathing technique with the diaphragm.
Basically breathing with your belly.
And not using your full capacity in some way. This is something that we also learned, because if you use only your diaphragm, you won't be like filling in all your lungs with air. And the top part with the ribs and stuff, there are techniques where people do this, like professionals do, like fill their entire capacity and then even get more air in. And this actually is proven to like push your heart and other organs and actually like damage them if you do it without training. But it's safer. So in some way we can say it's a bit safer. And what I liked about these breathing techniques is like you have to learn how to get really focused, relax every single muscle on your body, because every single muscle that is activated is going to consume oxygen. So you can relax all your body and only use the muscles that you really, really need for the sport. And that will make you also feel better underwater and like not waste your oxygen. And then there is also this thing with training your, I think it's pleura. It's the part of the body that tells your brain that you're not running out of oxygen, but have a lot more carbon dioxide than oxygen. And if you have a lot of this, let's say concentration, you have a lot more CO2 than oxygen, you faint, right? So it's about training your body to not feel that way so it doesn't faint, and also being comfortable underwater. Sometimes even if you have a lot more oxygen in your body and you could spend maybe 30 more seconds underwater, because you're not trained, you feel really uncomfortable and you have an urge to go out.
I think it's super interesting. Among the things we learned is apparently as something that your body does as soon as you put your face inside the water is that your body detects that you're in a non-air environment, and it automatically shuts down most of your organs, your belly, your liver, your guts, etc. And it only keeps alive your heart, your lungs, and your brain. And it also brings your heartbeat rate super low, apparently, to just keep energy and to keep. And then, so the feeling in your body when you're consciously relaxing yourself on the surface of the water, relaxing your muscles, concentrating on your body, your eyes closed, and being one with the water, I think it's just extremely interesting. And then on top of that, the sensory experience of going down and then having a different view of the world, a different sound of the world, the temperature, all of that contributes to create this state of consciousness, of mindfulness, being inside the water, of shutting down everything, your life, your problems, your stress, and just being there in the fluid medium. I think it's extremely interesting. How do you think that relates to getting simple?
So the diaphragm breathing technique is something that we've also been told that it helps if you do it every night after 7 p.m. for around 5 to 10 minutes. And I've tried it and it helps you relax and kind of has an aspect of relaxation and meditation embedded into the sport. I personally think that the fact that I've been doing breathing techniques or meditation for some time has helped me embrace this quickly, I think.
Can I say I was struggling through most of the course, whereas Nono looked like a freaking dolphin in the water. He would just go down, stay there, check out the fish, like look around. It was ridiculous. Nono is definitely one with the water.
Well, I would say Jose Luis has also been going down really well.
I disagree, but...
The compensation techniques, I think, is a bit of a barrier at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, I've seen with you, like if you get past through the equalization phase, it's a lot more enjoyable. I wanted to take a quick chance before we wrap up to also mention a few things about the materials or the equipment that you have to use. So I had previously used maybe masks, a wetsuit, fins, or things like this to just snorkel and maybe do a bit of free diving. But then I've learned that one of the core things that you have to use is a belt with lead weights. So for me, it was around 3 or 4 kilos and long fins. This makes it a lot easier to go down, right? To dive in. And there is this concept of neutral buoyancy at which you're basically neutral. You float and you don't go up or go down, right? And for me, I think if I wear a belt with 4 kilos, it's around 8 or 10 meters, maybe. So that means that below 10, I go down, and above 10, I go up. And this is a safety measure, because if you faint at minus 7 or 6 meters, it means that your body will naturally, and your equipment will naturally make you float. And apparently there are like micro bubbles of air in the wetsuits that also make you float more, right? So if you're diving without a wetsuit, you will sink, right? As opposed to maybe wearing like a 3 or 5 millimeter wetsuit. And other materials that were really important is the cleaning product for the plastic of the mask and an anti-fog. So that actually works. So I had been always having my mask fogged when I was snorkeling. And actually, it turns out that you also have to spit before going into the water and like spreading your spit or your saliva in the glasses of the mask. And that works. I got my mask with like also like, I don't know how you say that, like prescription lenses, so I can see sharper below water. What other equipment do you think is important?
It's interesting, for example, that the wetsuit is radically different if you're doing free diving or if you're doing scuba diving for multiple reasons. It's very interesting how the technique differs. I thought it was really interesting also the fact that you should always go with a floating buoy and as bright and as colorful as possible, because the water, there's actually a lot of people in the water, both on the surface and below. So if you're down diving, people with a boat or people with a jet ski may not know you're around and may literally run you over. So having a buoy is a safety measure to alert everyone on the surface that you're down below and that they should be careful and stay away. I had never thought of that concept, but it's a really interesting and very important one, I think.
One last thing of equipment is the hand light. So below 5 or 6 meters, everything's green and gray and blue, so there is no red. This is some physical phenomenon where like red colors, the wavelength is lower or something, and it doesn't really reach the bottom with as much strength.
As you go down in the water, light starts disappearing, and the first color wavelength that disappears is the reds. So as you go down, because there's no red light under the water, there's no red light reflected into your eyes, and everything looks shades of green and blue.
And now I'm going to ask something to Jose Luis that I think it would be interesting to hear. How did we end up here? What led you here? What loophole on the internet brought you here? I think it involves a bit of YouTube recommendation systems and Instagram profiles.
I think we're here because we're victims of digital social media algorithms. At some point, YouTube learned that I like nature documentaries and that I like scuba diving and that I like water sports. So at some point, it just started prompting me with suggestions of videos of people who were spear fishing. So they would go down 30 meters, shoot a fish, and then go up. And then I got excited. And then as soon as I clicked 2 or 3 of those videos, then more recommendations about people doing free diving and all kinds of non-scuba sports started propping up. Then that led me to Instagram and a couple of channels on Instagram that were doing those things. And then I got excited. And then I saw that Spain and the Canary Islands has a huge culture of free diving, which I thought was interesting because I wanted to come visit my family anyway. So it made things easier. And I was also sick of being in my apartment, locked in with COVID. I just recently got vaccinated in Massachusetts. So it was kind of like my, let's treat myself to a nice trip outside and do some physical activity, right? And here we are. And Nona was the only one who'd be crazy enough to follow my lead.
Yeah, to conclude, I'll say this is a sport that definitely relates to mindfulness. It's about knowing your body, controlling your body, your breathing, knowing what you're feeling. If you're going down and you don't feel okay, you have to go up. You have to do preparation outside of the water. There is a lot of equipment involved that we already mentioned that is important to have and makes your life a lot easier. We just tried to do it the other day without proper equipment and it's impossible to go down for 2 meters.
That did not go well.
2 meters. It's hard to go 2 meters because you're like using your hands and your arms and you're wasting energy to go down. And then when you get to 3 meters, you want to go up because you've wasted all your oxygen. So again, this was Jose Luis and Nono. Hopefully this was fun, or maybe this gives you some curiosity to get into the water and learn some of these things. As always, we'd love to hear from you on Twitter, on Discord, or at gettingsimple.com/ask if you want to send any questions or any comments. And one interesting fact from this trip has been that because I published 2 different stories on the Sketches newsletter, on the little stories that I publish weekly, one of our listeners, Yevgeny Shusko, he actually reached out and we were able to grab dinner with him. And I really, really liked hearing his thoughts, suggestions, what he liked or not liked, and some other interesting discussions that we had. So yeah, feel free to reach out. We don't bite.
And he reached out via the gettingsimple.com/ask, right? He left a voice message, right?
He did. And if you subscribe to the Sketches newsletter, you can also reach me out there. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll give a quick shout out to Jose Luis. He's doing a lot of work on YouTube. So you can go to see the stuff that he does online at youtube.com/parametriccamp. And we'll post links in the show notes. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time.